Hello, neighbors, and welcome back to Voices of Union County, Georgia. I am Alexis, and I will be your host for this Citizen News Report. Now, it's been a year and a half since I last uploaded a video and since my last news report. There's a reason I've been gone. For one, YouTube was taking down a lot of my videos. A lot of that hard work and effort was being taken down by YouTube while we were covering the shenanigans that we found going on with the Board of Elections. And then I got a bunch of strikes because of it. So when I got the message, one more strike and the channel would be down, I had to step away for a moment. At the same time, there was a lot going on with our current sole commissioner, Patrice, and our radio news, and by our radio news reporter, Jeff Batten, on both the air and on Facebook, attacking and slandering and making things pretty dangerous to continue at the moment. So I had to step away, and I did. And I'm going to say it was a nice rest. I enjoyed myself. I've spent a lot of time outside poking at plants like I do. But I'm back. I have been activated for this coming up primary for the Republican Party here in Union County. Now, today's Citizen News Report will be covering some questions that have been unanswered, questions that have been posed to sole commissioner candidate Patrice Kilpatrick that she has yet to respond to. And there have been enough days so that I am no longer expecting a response for those questions, but we will cover those here. And those questions are involving her actual involvement in what is being called the Grassroots movement for freedom here in Union County that's taken place over the last few years, as well as questions regarding reports that citizens have been sending in to me that they have discovered from Florida, from before she and her husband moved here 10 years ago, reports involving her husband, some very questionable behaviors from her husband as a police officer with the Davie Police Department there, and including, and very interesting to me, including large amounts of taxpayer money being received for not working. And still being received through pension, possibly. I'm not sure. There's a question there. Again, these questions have been posed to Patrice Kilpatrick to clarify them, and she has so far refused to do so. But before we get into all of that, I would like to share with all of the citizens here in Union County who were not there to see it happen, to see the unfolding of this very interesting thing that's taken place over the last few years here in Union County, of this, what is being called a grassroots movement aimed at freedom for the citizens here in Union County, to show you guys how this has taken place and the incredible way that it did. I would like to tell you the story about some courageous citizens and the disorganized grassroots movement for freedom here in Union County. Now, when you hear the word movement, it invokes the idea of some leading entity with an agenda that then brings in people who are in line with that agenda so that they can then fulfill that agenda. Same with the grassroots. It implies that there is this canopy of a organization with an agenda that then brings in people to help forward that agenda. And the amazing thing that I can say, as someone who loves the freedom of speech so truly, watching this happen over the last few years and seeing how it actually happened has been amazing and inspiring. So I would like to take you all on a journey and just walk you through at least my experience over the last few years of what's taken place to get us to the point where we are now, where we are actually able to speak freely without being attacked, where we have multiple places to speak with each other, and to share our information and to get involved with the things that each of us is interested in bringing forward. It has been amazing how this has happened and brought us to the point where we are today. So it all began with a mullein plant. I'm a forager. I'm a wild harvesting medicine maker here in the forest. And I was driving past a neighbor's house one day, August 2021, and she had some mullein plants on the side of her long driveway. I got in touch with her and said, hey, if you let me have some of those plants, I will tell you all of these plants that are growing here and how they're used for food and medicine. So she agreed. And as we're standing there talking, she asked me if I was attending the tax meeting a couple of days later, or coming up a couple of days later. And I said, no, tell me all about it. And she did. She started telling me all kinds of things. And so I went. I had no concept of local government before that, aside from the fact that I was well aware that it was local government that was shutting down people's businesses. It was local government that was putting all of the restrictions on us during 2020. And so it dawned on me during that conversation that maybe I would like to go and see what our local government is all about. So I did. And after that, I started going to our county commissioner meetings. When I started going to those meetings, there were about 4 of us citizens that were there asking questions, and the rest were predominantly just a handful of the current sole commissioner's friends and support. It was a very quiet, boring sort of meeting. There were not a lot of people there. I went and I started asking questions, and you could tell from the questions I was asking that I had no idea how local government worked at the time. But I did notice that there were 3 other citizens that were there that were just as interested as I was. There was a woman, Lori Brothers, Lori Brothers, she championed for us and she fought so hard for us for election integrity here in Union County. And because of her, we were able to discover that our Board of Elections was accidentally deleting ballot images since 2020. And that was a lot of work for her. But anyway, she was there, and she was there to speak about election integrity. There was another citizen there whose name I won't share because she doesn't put herself in the spotlight, and I want to honor that. But she was there to ask questions about T-Splost. And then I was there just trying to figure out up from down. And then there was another gentleman there, Joe Paisley, who was also asking questions. We were all just asking questions, trying to figure out what was going on in general. Now, every month, another person would show up asking questions, and another person. And so we started, we would stand in the parking lot after meetings. And because I really want to know information when I don't have it, and I love meeting intelligent people who know things that I don't know, I would stand in the parking lot and pull people aside that I had heard in the meeting saying something interesting. And I would ask them to tell me more about that. And then the group that was gathering outside after every meeting, it just started growing. There were citizens there that were pulling records requests regarding very shady seeming land deals going on. There were citizens there that were concerned about the business history of the hospital. There were citizens there that were concerned about T-Splost and where the tax money is actually going. There were just random citizens there with their own random interests that brought them to the meetings. And so we were all standing out in the parking lot, and every month that group of people milling around just talking and sharing their information grew and grew, to the point where by winter, it was like a tailgating party. It was a tailgating party of serious patriots who only had come together because they went to the same county meeting and had different questions and wanted to know more about what each other was working on at the time. So as you can see, this was not an organized effort. None of these people would have known each other if they had not met in this way. And we were all working on different things. Me personally, I was very concerned about free speech. I started noticing that the commissioner was personally attacking citizens that were asking pointed questions rather than just answering those questions. And then I had gone back into history and found that one of our pioneering citizens that has been pulling records requests and questioning things for a very long time, about 10 years ago, there was a video I found that about 10 years ago, he had held an entire meeting just to call her very vulgar names. At the public county meeting. And it was really concerning to me seeing that behavior. So for me, free speech is everything. So I went and I started filming meetings. That's what I was doing. I was the free speech person. And again, everybody had something that they were focused on, except for Joe Paisley. He seemed to just want to know what was going on with everybody. And that'll come in a little bit later in the story. So as we are now becoming a tailgating party of patriots just seeking information and supporting each other's efforts, it started getting cold. And I suggested, hey, how about we rent a room so that we don't have to stand out here in the cold and we can actually have a place where we can discuss things freely. At the same time, the commissioner had, as people had started coming, the T-Splost vote was coming up and people were coming and they were asking very hard questions about T-Splost spending in the past. The current sole commissioner restricted our ability to speak. He made it to where we could no longer speak for 5 minutes. Now it's only 3. We can no longer go to the podium. Now we have to stand in the audience and speak out for everyone to hear us. And now, okay, we can have a microphone, but now we're not allowing anyone to talk at all. So this one day that the commissioner decided he would take no questions and answers, and there were a lot of citizens there. There were a lot of people attending, which was really amazing, by the way, because if you remember, there were only a handful of people that went to those meetings only a handful of months prior. Of course, we can thank our radio voice Malone and Moyer for getting some of that attention by seriously attacking, doing their best anyway, putting their best effort into humiliating and disparaging the citizens that were attending meetings and asking questions by calling them the circus. The circus has descended upon Union County, in an effort to make it look like it was an organized group, not just random citizens asking questions and being denied their right to do so. So thank you, Malone and Moyer. I appreciate that. Funny about Malone, I asked him once, you sit about 10 feet away from me at every single one of these meetings. You talk about me on the radio all the time, but you've never ever asked me a question. You've never talked to me. And he said, because I don't know what your issue is. And I said, yeah, but if you're the news and you're reporting about me in the news, I'm wondering why you've never asked me a question. And he said, because I don't know what your issue is. And I said, right, but you would if you had ever asked. It was just ridiculous what our radio voices will do to shut down free speech under the illusion of promoting free speech in the Constitution has been astounding for me to discover over the last few years. But anyway, so thanks to them causing drama on the radio, people started paying attention and people started coming. So at this one meeting, the commissioner said he will not take any questions. No one can speak at this meeting. And so that left a lot of people in the hall after the meeting had concluded saying, I had things I wanted to say. I have questions that I need to have answered. And so I announced, let's have a town hall meeting. Let's start a town hall meeting where we can get together every month and we can just discuss these things. A nonpartisan town hall meeting, by the way, because if you have not noticed yet, here in our local government, left and right, blue and red, none of that matters. We are neighbors, first and foremost. We are a community of citizens here in Union County. So that is how the Unite Union County Town Hall meeting came to be. Now, an interesting thing happened that day. Oh, well, let me back up just a little bit. Okay, when I had first suggested renting a room and we went to do that, this was a few months into me going to these meetings. This was I'm thinking around January because it was cold outside. Joe Paisley, this man who had just been coming to meetings and paying attention and listening to what people had to say, he took it upon himself to be the leader of that group. And as he had a very dominant personality, it seemed, okay, let's do that, because nobody else wanted to do that. We were all just doing our own thing. So Joe Paisley would call the force. I told you there were four of us. So he would call me, he would call Lori Brothers, and he would call the other citizen that was working on T-Splost things, just to get an update and see what we were all doing. Me with recording. I had just launched the Voices of Union County YouTube channel. And the only reason I did that initially was because I was recording these meetings, at the commissioner meetings and also the other meetings that were going on in town, so that the citizens, they would be recorded what they were saying. Because the way that the current sole commissioner has it set up, he shuts off filming before citizens speak. So that even if you do a records request to view that footage, you will not be able to hear the citizens speaking and him answering them, because they cut it off. So I was filming for that reason. And then I had citizens that wanted those videos so that they could use the things he was saying for their research. And I had no way to share that. Sharing large video files is a very difficult thing to do. So that's how the YouTube channel started. Okay, so I had just started that, and then announced this town hall meeting. And that's about the time period. So Joe Paisley was calling each of us, and then going to this just rent a room. We all show up to talk. He was running that, and it was under the guise that he was going to make sure that we had support on our individual tasks. Now, I'm going to pause here in the story, and I want you to understand, at least from my perspective, of someone who is passionate about free speech. It's not just a concept. The thing about free speech is that it gives us the ability to make educated decisions reflecting our own true free will. So anyone that is manipulating that information, censoring that information, anyone that is doing that is, in effect, forcing their will upon your free will. And to me, that's abhorrent. That's abhorrent. Also, when human beings are allowed to discuss ideas freely, they can then problem solve at a much higher level. So to me, free speech is everything. And having free speech, it gives so much power to the people. When things are not being manipulated, you can create a healthy, peaceful environment. It's everything to me. So understanding that, understand that these citizens that came together, they were not an organized group of people. They were random people fighting their own battles for freedom for citizens here in Union County. They all just happened to show up together to discuss those ideas freely. That's all. There was no organized effort, or not at first. So now that brings me back to Joe Paisley taking leadership role. Now I take some responsibility here because I was at the table when Joe Paisley and I were both approached by former members of the Tea Party asking us to bring back the Tea Party so that we can use it as an organized effort to help all of the citizens. Now remember, the individual citizens that were already working on their projects individually to give an umbrella kind of organized place to gain support for those citizens and their efforts. So the Tea Party began. And the three objectives of the Tea Party were to help the citizens that were working on the multi-commissioner board petition. They had been already working on that themselves, and they were trying to get volunteers to help them. These people are passionate about what they're doing. I hold them in the highest respect. Whether you agree with signing the petition to allow the voters to vote on having a multi-commissioner board or not, these are citizens that believe strongly and are willing to stand outside in the sun all day long to get this petition signed, and they work really hard, and they're retirees, and they're out there every day for a very long time doing it by themselves. So to garner volunteer support for them, to help Lori Brothers with the election integrity, and to focus on issues with transparency with the school board. And now, forgive me for not being able to do this in such a chronological order, because certain things remind me of something, and I've got to go back. I mean, this was a lived experience over a handful of years. So the day that the commissioner, the sole commissioner, announced no questions would be allowed at that meeting, and everyone was standing there, and I announced, let's have a town hall meeting. Joe Paisley had been in the bathroom, and he came out right as I was announcing it, and he was livid. He was really upset. He told me that I should never have made that choice without consulting him first. And now, if you know me, you know that it's funny, the idea that I would consult someone else before doing something I believe in. That's so funny. And so I laughed. I really thought it was funny that he was so angry that I created a free speech town hall meeting, because of course we needed that. That was very much needed. A place where the citizens are in control and can come and just talk freely like we were doing in the parking lot. So that was upsetting to him, and I just kind of brushed it off at the time. No big deal. So now the Tea Party has started, and there is a meeting for the executive members of the Tea Party to be voted in, because that's what you do. The members vote in their executive positions. Well, Joe Paisley just appointed himself as the leader, and very oddly that day, there was a group of men standing in the back that none of us had ever seen before. None of us that have had boots on the ground and were taking hit after hit from the radio, the sheriff's department, the commissioner, the newspaper, all of us out there working so hard and just dodging arrows. We'd never seen these guys before. Joe Paisley then introduces them as his Green Beret friends. So Joe Paisley is a Green Beret, and these were his friends. And at least one of them, if not two of them, didn't even live in Union County. And he just appointed them to positions on the executive for the executive members. Just appointed them. And it all happened really fast, and it was very confusing. So now all of a sudden we have these military guys that haven't been doing anything, don't know anything about anything, that are now in charge of the Tea Party. And it happened so swiftly. It was very confusing. I was then told by Joe Paisley that I could not be a member of the Tea Party, not even just a person member. I'm not talking about executive, just couldn't be a member of the Tea Party unless I quit the town hall meeting. And I thought, well, that is very strange. Why would shutting down the only forum that we have for nonpartisan free speech, why would that be something desired? It made no sense to me at the time. Now, over the few months that all of this had been going on, some cool things were happening with the town hall meeting. And feel free to go into the video playlists here on the Voices of Union County, Georgia YouTube channel. Now, YouTube did delete a lot of those town hall meetings due to talking about what was uncovered with our Board of Elections. However, there's a lot of information there of just people just talking and sharing information. A lot of things, a lot of history. There's so much information that these very intelligent and caring citizens would come to those meetings and discuss to share with everybody. And of course, that was the point of the town hall meeting, was so that we could have somewhere where not only could the people that cared enough to show up to our civics, our government meetings, those people needed somewhere to get together and talk, but also a way to get their voice out there to the public, because the newspaper was not doing that. In fact, North Georgia News was was allowing the commissioner to print bold inaccuracies. When I say inaccuracies, I mean entire 2-page column articles that was nothing but misinformation about the petition, without allowing the petitioners to correct that information or to have an article at all explaining the parameters of that petition. The radio making fun of everybody, the commissioner having people removed. There was no way for the voters of Union County to hear that information. So that was the point of the town hall meeting, that, and to have a place for people to just show up and talk as neighbors, not as right or left, red or blue. So as that's going on, that is when the first time I met Patrice. She walked into the town hall meeting. She sat down, very poised. She's a very poised persona, and she mostly just listened and observed the crowd. And she did that for quite a while. So I'll return to that later. And now I'm going to continue from the Tea Party, because that was just a little back step to explain what was going on in the meantime. This town hall was going on. Go and look up some of those videos. You'll learn a whole lot. But now we're back to the Tea Party, and we've had these Green Berets come in and just take over. And that went on for quite a while. Then I'm not sure how many months later, I started at some point in the early stages of the Tea Party organizing. Joe Paisley asked me, even though I wasn't a member, but because I was doing online things, to create a Facebook page for them, simply to post the schedule of the petitioners, where they would be. And as I was there supporting those petitioners and their efforts, I did that gladly. It was no effort. But then a few months later, I received a phone call from Scott Donahue, demanding I give him that page, and, oh, please take it, because I'm not even a part of this and I don't need to do it. So that was interesting. And I bring up Scott Donahue for a very good reason. So he was very aggressive over the phone, and sent a whole lot of aggressive private messages to me over something as simple as just, here, please take this. So I attended. I didn't go to all these meetings because, again, I wasn't a part of the Tea Party. But I was at one meeting where I walked in, and as Joe Paisley had just had a phone conversation with me a few days previously, letting me have it about this town hall meeting, how, because it wasn't conservative or something. I don't know. I don't care. We needed it, and I do what I do. He was very upset. And so I walked in to the meeting, and he stood up and he announced I couldn't be there. I wasn't a member of the Tea Party, and I had to leave. But the thing about Scott taking over this Facebook page, that I had only just created it. I wasn't doing anything on it for them. But it was supposed to be handed over to one of these Green Beret guys, Little Wes. And so I kept trying to give it over to Little Wes, but he didn't have a Facebook profile or anything, and there was no way for me to give it over to him. And I definitely wanted him to take it because I had no interest. It wasn't my thing. So when Scott called and demanded then that I give it to him, I said, okay, but I need to hear that from Joe Paisley because he's running your Tea Party. And so I talked with him. And in that conversation, I got royally chewed out for the town hall meeting because it was not conservative. It was for everyone. And yes, I don't make those distinctions when it comes to the local politics because we're all neighbors and we need free speech above all else. And I really don't care what anyone else thinks about that. I do what I do. So, a lot of anger went on that day. And I came though to the next meeting because remember the Tea Party itself was really just these Green Beret guys pretending to lead something that these citizens were just doing for themselves. They just came to this because it was under the guise of getting volunteer support for their specific issues, and none of that was taking place. The petitioner volunteers, a couple of people showed up for a couple of the days that they were set up for petitions. Patrice Kilpatrick was one of those people. She sat in her chair under the canopy a couple of days. Okay, a couple of days is a bit of an exaggeration. I'm not sure how many days, but it wasn't enough. It was more like a show, like, here, see, I did it. And that's how it was for all the people that just kind of showed up like, oh, I'll volunteer. And it was just for a handful of days and then they were gone. So they needed help. They needed more than just 2 days of help or, like 3 days of sitting there on a chair and greeting people. They were out there like actually getting the people and talking them through what the petition was, and they needed help. So this, after this aggression about passing over this Facebook page, I was at that meeting and Joe Paisley was furious that I was there. And I got up to talk about this whole situation about handing over this Facebook page. And he exploded in anger and in front of everyone demanded I leave, that I was not welcome there because I was not a member of the Tea Party. And other citizens in the room stood up and said, absolutely not. I wasn't fighting to be there. It's just that I was the free speech person for all of these citizens doing the work. I didn't do the T-Splost or the E-Splost holding signs. I was not part of the petition. I wasn't part of any of the things. I just went to all of these meetings to hear the voices of these citizens so that I could help them with their free speech efforts. That was what I was doing. So then these citizens stood up and said, actually, you guys, all of you guys, you haven't actually been helping us at all. We're not getting any further along here since the Tea Party started. So those guys all left. They left in unison. And on the way out, somehow Joe Paisley appointed Patrice Kilpatrick to be the leader of the Tea Party. Again, no vote was taken. So then I'm not sure if it was a couple of meetings later or if it was the very next meeting when Kilpatrick took over, but Scott Donahue announced that he was against the petition and was personally golfing with our representative Stan Gunter to ensure that the efforts of the petition would not go forward. Now, Scott Donahue was acting as an active member of the Tea Party at this time. He had started his own Facebook page for the Tea Party and was acting as the Tea Party spokesperson on Facebook. Not only was he doing that, but he was very vulgar to citizens while communicating with them on these Facebook forums as a representative of the Tea Party. So with the vulgarity being displayed in his communication while representing the Tea Party, and with actively meeting with state representative to actively oppose the petition, which was one of the three things the Tea Party was supposed to be there for. I was present for a conversation with Patrice Kilpatrick saying, you need to deal with Scott Donahue. This is not okay. Patrice Kilpatrick did not return after that. She then appointed Vince to take over leading the Tea Party, a man named Vince, and again, no vote taken. And then shortly thereafter, the Tea Party dissolved. Now, in this time, I was working with one of the active members of the Tea Party who was helping to organize the meetings, telling her, "Hey, please ask Patrice. I really need volunteer support for this news channel. I've been going to all of these meetings and filming. I have a busted up computer with zero RAM. It takes me 8 hours to just upload, to render and upload just an unedited government meeting to these YouTube channels, and I really need help." So finally, after asking again and again and again and again, Patrice okayed it for me to get on the agenda to ask for volunteer support in filming these government meetings and doing the editing and the hosting of the videos on the YouTube channel. Again, I am an idea person. I was not trying to run the whole YouTube channel. I wasn't trying to do any of that. Nor the town hall meeting. I just knew that those things needed to happen. And so I was doing it, but I needed other people involved. When I finally was able to get on the agenda at the Tea Party meeting to discuss the need for volunteer support for people helping to film meetings, Vince stood up and talked loudly over me the entire time I was talking. And it was so intense, in fact, that I jumped up from my seat and jumped on the stage and just started talking, trying to talk over him. He wasn't talking about anything wrong with what I was doing. He was just talking about something completely that had nothing to do with what I was doing, as if I wasn't even there. So that was weird. And so that's one reason why I was so affected when I heard Patrice talking about how we need to have the government meetings filmed and then hosted on a public YouTube channel. I was really confused about that, because I'll tell you, she had ample opportunity to help with that, with getting volunteers for the petitioners, for all of these things. And all I ever saw her do from the very first day was just show up at meetings, hold herself in this very poised way of being, not doing anything that got any arrows slung at her. All of these citizens were taking hit after hit after hit, having their names dragged through the mud from our GOP members, the radios on the so-called news channel on the radio, the voices, the newspaper, the sheriff's department, the commissioner, all of this taking hit after hit in an attempt to discredit them and get them ostracized from the community. But never once did Patrice take part in anything that would have gotten that kind of attention on her. Instead, I saw her scanning the room to see who she needed to talk to, is what the impression was for me. Kind of like a socialite kind of maneuver. Who here at this table has power, and then go talk to them. That's what my observations were. Meanwhile, the citizens were still on the ground doing all of this work. And at any time, if she had cared, I was waiting. I waited for a long time observing, and I didn't see any effort being put in to help in any way other than to be seen and to rub elbows. That's all I saw this whole time. So shortly thereafter, the Tea Party just simply dissolved. It just fell apart. I'm not really sure if it was done in an official way or if it just ended. But that happened just within a handful of months of Patrice Kilpatrick having leadership over the Tea Party. Now, the reason I brought up Scott Donahue is because he is one of Patrice's most vocal supporters, and he is often seen sitting at the table with her. It concerns me that anybody that is claiming to be the leader of citizens already doing the hard work, that does not actually help them in their efforts, and then actually actively goes against their efforts while under the guise of being their representation, that's very concerning to me. I noticed details like that, and it really sticks with me. So I found it interesting that not only did she not reprimand Scott or deal with him at the time, that he just laughed about how he was going against the petition by golfing with Stan Gunter to make sure it wouldn't happen, but also seeming to give the Tea Party a bad name by the way that he was talking to citizens on the Facebook forums, all of this just seemed oddly counterproductive for what the efforts actually were. And now I do want to point it out, because if those are the types of people that are surrounding the candidate for sole commissioner, Patrice Kilpatrick, I question if it is a situation of discernment or what it is to be so closely connected with that type of mentality. Now that brings me to my questions that have been unanswered. So I believe that was a brief recap. I didn't cover the mask mandate. I'll get there in the questions. So much went on in those years. So many citizens doing amazing work. Again, I was just there to get to know them and to make sure their voices were heard. But those citizens worked so hard just from their own passion and interest, not because anyone told them what to do or anyone directed them. It was really amazing to watch it all unfold. And it was really amazing to watch how the citizens that did start hearing what was going on started showing up, and people started paying attention. Again, a few years ago, you weren't able to talk about these things on Facebook. You were banned. The radio, the newspaper, all of these people would shut you down from speaking. So the fact that we are where we are right now is a testament to the power of free speech, and also a testament to the courage of the citizens that were doing all of this work while being completely attacked from all angles. Okay, so last week, sometime last week, I posed a list of questions to sole commissioner candidate Patrice Kilpatrick. There was a Facebook post from her candidate page asking if anyone had questions. So I posted it there. I got no response, although she was replying to other people. I emailed her campaign directly at their Gmail address and have still not received a response from them for these questions or for the questions regarding the news reports that have just surfaced in the last few days. I've received no answers to any of these questions. So I'm just going to go through them and let you know why I asked them and what I observed being the answers to these questions over my direct observations of being so involved. So the first question is from Ms. Kilpatrick is, when, with the ample opportunities over the last 3 years, have you stood with the citizens who have been fighting corruption and for our rights in Union County? Not at all, except for in the capacity of getting up to give speeches that didn't really have a lot of substance. She did get up to be the face for the petition at a GOP meeting, which was odd because she wasn't actually doing the petitioning. Again, she showed up a few times. I personally, and this is my personal observation, saw it more as she wanted to be one of the multi-commissioners, one of the members on the board, because she wasn't actually doing it from passion for wanting it to happen, as the citizens who were standing in the sun and in the weather and day after day after day, those citizens were doing it because they actually cared a lot about it. She only showed up a few times, was sitting and just being poised, and then got up and gave a speech about it as if she was the face of the petition. So that was really weird. And then other than that, I have seen not any time that she actually was boots on the ground. Possibly for the East Blast. I wasn't there for that. I do believe that she was involved in that, but I can't be sure. I wasn't there. Okay, question 2. What is your involvement with the outside military group that you and your husband have been working with, who attempted to influence our government by populating the Tea Party seats before handing it to you without a vote? Okay, that's a really good question. So it turns out that Patrice and her husband moved here 10 years ago, and I'm not sure what police department she was on. He was on the Davie Police Department. That's going to come up later in this report. But interestingly, Scott Donahue also lived there and was also a with the Davie Police Department. So they are connected from history. I don't know that they have any historical connections to Joe Paisley and his Green Beret group before getting involved in local politics here. I do not know. However, they are working together on something they presented regarding a boys' educational thing of teaching boys to be men in the forest. So they work very closely together on that effort, and it's just strange. So a group of military men that came in, didn't hold a vote, took complete power over this thing as if they were going to now regulate the citizens that were already doing the work, didn't help them, then handed it to Patrice without a vote, who, it's just all so weird. I don't know. I don't know the answer to this, but I know that they work closely with them, and this military group came in an effort to shape Union County, the politics of Union County through the Tea Party. And I just find that interesting and concerning and something that the voters need to just know about. Okay, question 3. Why did the Tea Party dissolve so quickly under your leadership? I don't know why, but I do know that it did, and it makes me question her ability to actually be a leader. That's just the only thing there. It would be good to have an answer for that. Patrice Kilpatrick, feel free to respond to any of these questions at any time. I've given you quite a while to respond to them. Question number 4, where were you during the protest that led to the removal of the mask mandate? Okay, let me tell you about that. So there was our judge over Onoda put in a mask mandate. He was very serious about it. That included wearing a mask to go to the commissioner meeting. And there was a gentleman that was going up against Union County in court, a very brave citizen that was taking it on all on his own. And he needed to go to those commissioner meetings so that he could prepare for his case. And he also had emphysema and couldn't wear a mask. Now, not only is a judge not able to dictate what goes on in the executive branch regarding what goes on at a commissioner meeting, so that is a separation of powers issue there, but also it was an issue with open meetings. With the Open Meetings Act, the laws surrounding open meetings, they made they gave no ability for someone unable to wear a mask to attend the meeting, and you cannot do that. That is not allowed. So that was a direct violation of our rights. So a small handful of us went to the meeting. We socially distanced. We stayed in one far back corner away from everybody and didn't wear a mask. And that meeting then got canceled. Interestingly, and side note for anyone wondering about Paige Thornton, a candidate for the school board, she pulled up afterwards where we were standing outside like we do. We were standing outside right after the meeting. It was just after the meeting. It was dark outside. It was February, and I believe 2022. And she pulled up on us like she didn't even brake coming into the parking lot. She pulled up and slammed on her brakes just a few feet away from our bodies. We thought we were about to get run over. She had her brights on us and jumped out, leaving her car running, flung the door open, and started taking flash photos of us. And it happened so fast, we thought it was like she was going to shoot us. We couldn't see her face. And we asked who she was, and she refused to tell us. And then somebody got in front of her car to take a picture of her license plate. She almost drove over him to peel out of the parking lot. So that's just a side story. But it lets you know the kinds of things that were happening to the citizens actually doing the work. This was not just a one-time thing. We were getting attacked left and right. So anyway, that's the mask mandate. And oh, by the way, Patrice wasn't there. I mean, she wasn't there at all, standing with us to protest that mask mandate. All right. Therefore, her name wasn't in the newspaper, to be condemned for doing so. All right, let's see. Question number 5. You say you want to create a YouTube channel to host government meetings. I find this confusing and I'm wondering why you denied the repeated requests for volunteer support for the filming of local government meetings and hosting of those meetings on the public YouTube channel that already exists. Well, I've kind of answered that question already. Well, I don't actually have an answer for that. It really makes no sense. If this is something she actually believes in, I'm telling you, the citizens that did all of this work and brought us to the point where we are today in this county did it from passion. They didn't do it to have their names on anything. Nobody wanted any kind of public recognition for it. Everyone just did what they did because they believed in their hearts that it needed to be done, and they worked hard. So if any of the things that she is currently saying actually were passion things for her, like she actually cared, there was ample opportunity at any time to jump in and show it. So yeah, that's my answer for number 5. Okay. Number 6, how many records requests have you personally submitted in the last 3 years before announcing your candidacy? I'm 95% certain the answer to that is 0. I say 95% because I don't know. She can answer that for us, but I'm pretty sure the answer is absolutely 0. She is, however, using all the work of the citizens that were seriously abused for those records requests. One of our citizens has been at this for 10 years or longer, and our current sole commissioner increased the rates for her for records requests to try to punish her and keep her from doing it, but she never did. Patrice is definitely using her work and everybody else's work, but never had to take any heat for it because she didn't show any passion the whole time for all the things that were going on, at least not enough to be recognized for it by those that were trying to silence us. So that brings me to the last question for Patrice Kilpatrick. Why has your name never been mentioned by the sole commissioner or radio voices when they've publicly condemned the citizens who have been fighting? Those standing up against the leachate dumping, land grabbing, mask mandate, and removal of rights at government meetings, the petitioners, those holding our Board of Elections and GOP accountable, filming meetings and holding town hall meetings for free speech have all been repeatedly publicly named and condemned for ostracism for standing up. But never once Patrice Kilpatrick, in all of these years where she was definitely there, she was observing, she was rubbing elbows, she was sitting poised and pretty, but she never got that involved. Why? And why would we think that she will now is really the question. From my observation, and this is just my observation after having been in the thick of it all of this time and watching everything unfold, I have had the impression since the first time I met her, and nothing since then has altered that impression, that Patrice Kilpatrick was simply there to be seen and to find her way in to having some sort of power position over all of these things. That seems to be where her passion lied the whole time. Not in actually doing any of this work, but in actually working her way up the power structure. That's the only place I saw her over all this time put in effort. Now, if I am wrong about that, please let me know. I am one person and I am simply reporting on my direct observations of the lived experience. But that is what my impression was the whole time and still is, and why I'm standing up, because these citizens have worked so hard. All we need is free speech. When the citizens of Union County are able to hear what's going on from the citizens that are actually doing the work to uncover things, then we can have peace in Union County. We don't need someone to fight and get national attention so that they can be on newspapers and, possibly be the next Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like, we don't need that. We need peace. I'm tired of the fight. It is exhausting. Nobody does that for fun unless they want to be seen for it. But really, it is not a fun thing to do. We don't need the fight. What we need is free speech. That's it. Let the citizens do it ourselves. With free speech, we don't need a champion. We don't need a savior. We do it ourselves. And I have seen that happen over the last few years, no thanks to the people trying to lead the citizens doing the work. Ugh, I have feelings. Okay, now all of this leads me to the news reports that have recently surfaced that were sent in to me from concerned citizens asking me to look into it, and I have done my best. All I can seem to find are the news articles online from Florida regarding this story. Again, I have reached out to Sole Commissioner candidate Patrice Kilpatrick, asking to please say something about this to either confirm, deny, or explain. And I have yet to hear anything back. What I have received are a lot of personal attacks and insults from two GOP members that are staunch supporters of her. By the way, the GOP is not allowed to support a candidate during a primary, and they're supposed to be about free speech. I mean, that's what they're like. That's one of the things they're supposed to be very much interested in. But these two particular GOP members that are staunch supporters of Patrice's, Sylvia Munson and Sharon Brown, they are both, Sylvia is a mod on one online forum and Sharon is the owner of another, both touting themselves as free speech. They are banning people for criticizing or asking hard questions about their desired candidates and personally attacking them. So that is something I have received a lot of insults from them and other supporters, but I have yet to have dialogue regarding any of the questions that I asked just a moment ago, or this story that I'm about to present. So what we have here is a very concerning situation. The reports have just surfaced and it leaves a lot of questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through some of these articles and so that you'll have the information for yourself. And then I will explain why I personally am concerned about this with regard to having someone step into the sole commissioner seat, being in charge of the whole county, especially when her supporters are also have just recently taken over the GOP and also are running supposed free speech online forums that are not free speech. They are wide banning people all over the place. So I have a lot of concern about this. So, all right, let's get into it. So from the the Sun Sentinel, there we go. This article, Davie Police Investigating 911 Incident. Now, this article is going to show a reason why Kevin Kilpatrick, Patrice Kilpatrick's husband, was removed from duty as a police officer with the Davie Police Department. So I'm going to read this. This article is from October 29, 2003. Okay, so it says Davie Police said they are investigating an incident in which two officers failed to report a domestic violence call at a third officer's home, during which the officer's wife, a Broward sheriff's dispatcher, said she had been physically abused. Also in question is the handling of the matter by a second sheriff's office dispatcher who quietly sent Davie patrol officers to the home without logging the call, a violation of department policy. According to reports from the Broward State Attorney's Office and the Sheriff's Office, here's what happened. On January 25th, dispatcher Cynthia Rivera received a 911 hang-up call coming from a phone number she recognized as belonging to her friend, Lisa Kilpatrick, who is a sheriff's office dispatch supervisor. Kilpatrick is married to Davie Police Detective Kevin Kilpatrick. Now, this was his former wife. Instead of returning the hang-up call or immediately dispatching officers over the radio, Rivera used an unrecorded phone line to call Davie police officers Patrick Donnelly and Lance Seltzer, who were on duty and eating breakfast, and asked them to go to Kilpatrick's Davie home. Donnelly and Seltzer knew only that they were responding to a 911 hang-up call. When the officers arrived, they found Kevin Kilpatrick getting ready to leave and his wife, quote, very upset. Lisa Kilpatrick told both officers that she and her husband had been fighting and that he ripped the phone from her hand when she tried to call 911. She also told them that her husband had, quote, grabbed her around the shoulders and head during the fight and then pushed her away, end quote, the state attorney's report said. Lisa Kilpatrick, who had been with the sheriff's office since 1989, on Tuesday denied the incident occurred, saying quote, the allegations are absolutely not true, quote, end quote, and, quote, clearly a lie, end quote. She added that the 911 call was accidental. The sheriff's office report also said that Seltzer and Rivera, in a follow-up call of January 25th, that the call was, quote, unfounded. On February 14th, Davie Police Detective Gary Silvestri, did I say that right? Silvestri, of the Internal Affairs Unit, learned of the matter, investigated, and found that Donnelly and Seltzer reported neither Rivera's dispatch call nor their visit to the Kilpatrick's home in the daily duty logs. In reports their supervisors ordered them to write, both officers admitted keeping the matter quiet. In his report, Donnelly said he didn't, quote, document any of this because Kevin Kilpatrick was a fellow officer, end quote. And Seltzer said in his report that, quote, in my opinion, nothing had happened, end quote, and that he did not want to write a report about Detective Kilpatrick. And I'm not going to read the entire article because it goes on and there are more that I want to cover. But you can find this for yourself. It's the Sun Sentinel, and the name is Davie Police Investigating 911 Incident. Now I want to switch over to another Sun Sentinel article. Officer charged with DUI fleeing. Now, this was April 8th, 2004. A Davie police detective under internal investigation for covering up a domestic violence call at his home is being prosecuted by the state on separate charges that he drove drunk and fled from the officer who pulled him over. Detective Kevin Kilpatrick, a 10-year veteran of the department, was suspended last week for 6 days for disobeying orders not to discuss the internal affairs investigation into the February 2003 domestic violence call, and for openly criticizing another officer who assisted investigators, records show. Kilpatrick, 34, who earns $58,642 annually, has been on paid administrative leave since October 30th while the department investigated the domestic violence incident. 2 weeks after being placed on leave, the investigation expanded after a Davie police lieutenant reported he pulled Kilpatrick over for drunken driving and Kilpatrick fled. Broward Assistant State Attorney John Hanlon recently filed charges in the DUI case. When Kilpatrick could not be reached for comment, his attorney, Anthony Livati, said the state's case is weak. Quote, I think the state is going to have a difficult time proving these charges. How many people are charged with DUI months later? End quote, Livati said. Quote, there's no blood alcohol. The burden of proof is on the state. End quote. Kilpatrick plans to file a grievance against the suspension, he added. Kilpatrick first came under scrutiny in March 2003 after Davie internal affairs investigator learned he and two other Davie officers, Patrick Donnelly and Lance Seltzer, failed to report a domestic violence call at Kilpatrick's home a month earlier. That night, Kilpatrick's wife, Lisa Kilpatrick, told officers her husband grabbed her around the neck when she tried to call 911 and ripped the phone out of the wall. Donnelly and Seltzer later said they did not report the incident because they wanted to protect Kilpatrick, records show. In interviews the following month with internal affairs investigators, Lisa Kilpatrick denied her husband had assaulted her and said she broke the phone herself during an argument. The case was forwarded to the state attorney's office, which cleared all three officers. However, the internal police investigation closed 2 weeks ago found that Donnelly and Seltzer violated policy. Discipline against them is pending. The investigation took a turn in November after Davie Police Lieutenant Craig Richards reported Kilpatrick fled when stopped for swerving and apparently driving under the influence. According to documents from Davie Police and the Broward State Attorney's Office, here's what happened. Richards was outside the Roundup, a Davie bar, about 1 a.m. November 13th when he saw Kilpatrick walk unsteadily to his pickup truck. Richards, who was on duty, gave Kilpatrick a ride home. An hour later, Richards was outside the Roundup when Kilpatrick stepped out of a black Mustang and drove away in his own pickup truck. Both vehicles headed eastbound on Interstate 595, with the Mustang leading the way. Richards followed them and said he saw the pickup swerve at least 6 times. He turned on his blue light and pulled both vehicles over near Florida's Turnpike. As he was preparing to get out, the truck sped away. Now, remember, the truck is Kevin Kilpatrick, so he sped away. Okay, back to Richards followed with lights and siren, but could not catch the truck. About 20 minutes later, he saw the pickup in Kilpatrick's driveway. Davie Police forwarded the case to the state attorney's office, and Kilpatrick was charged with driving under the influence and fleeing from police. Okay, moving on to another article. This is also from the Sun Sentinel, and this one is titled, Davie Paying Officer to Not Work for 7 Years. So in reading this article, I am getting a little bit of an idea of a timeline here, but let me begin. So this article was written in February 15th, 2011. Davie Police Department hasn't let Officer Kevin Kilpatrick report to duty for 7 years, but still pays him $80,275 annually. He has made more than $550,000 for not working. Now, side note, that is not including the pension that he has also received over the last 10 years. Okay, back to it. Kilpatrick, 41, has been investigated on accusations involving a domestic abuse cover-up as well as a DUI charge. Cover-up, okay? The department fired him twice, and twice he won his job back. Once from an arbitrator, once from a federal judge. Quote, there was nothing wrong with him, said Roman Courier, Kilpatrick's attorney. This guy was completely railroaded by the department. So that's what his attorney said. Okay. Under the settlement in the federal case, Kilpatrick was supposed to return to work and get a job behind a desk. Kilpatrick, who was hired in February 1994, has said all along that he wanted to come back to work, but his attorney says the town has, quote, put, quote, hoops, end quote, in Kilpatrick's way, insisting that he complete a polygraph, even though that was not part of the settlement. Okay, side note. So one question I have is that what he was fighting against? Why would they want him to do a polygraph before letting him go back to work? I mean, clearly they're spending a lot of money on him, and they're not wanting to. So what was the polygraph about? Something later in the article makes me think I might know what it is. Okay, getting back to it. Town officials have since backed down, but are now requiring him to complete his recertification as a police officer so that he can return to work. Town officials have argued that Kilpatrick is, quote, permanently unfit for duty, end quote, based on the opinion of one psychologist given in December 2007. The officials say they worry about the unfit for duty finding could make the town liable in court if Kilpatrick got involved in a shooting, town attorney John Rayson said. But a more recent opinion from a psychiatrist selected by the town's pension board disputes that earlier finding. Given in August 2008, it says Kilpatrick is indeed fit for duty and able to work as a cop both mentally and physically. So my question is then why would they not put him back on? And again, I think something later in the article makes me think that I know why, but I don't know why. That's why I keep asking, but I won't get a response about it. Okay. Quote, do you think the town wants to pay him to sit home on his fanny? Rayson said. The town wanted him back to work, but in dispatch or a desk job. The town is kind of a catch the town is in kind of a catch-22. The town is duty bound under the settlement agreement to pay him, end quote. So are they saying that he was allowed to go and have a desk job, but under the settlement, they didn't want him to be active duty, is what I'm seeing over and over again. And there's a reason. Okay, so back to it. Through his attorney, Kilpatrick declined to comment. By all accounts, Kilpatrick was an exceptional officer with an impeccable record. He won high praise from supervisors during his first 10 years with the department. He was quickly promoted to K-9 officer, served on the SWAT team, and also worked undercover as a narcotics detective. Courier says, and I think this was his lawyer, okay, so his lawyer says, Courier says the department's top brass targeted Kilpatrick after a rift developed in 2003 between him and Police Chief John George, who has since retired and could not be reached for comment. Okay, so from my timeline, it looks like in late January is when the 911 call came in that was hidden by his fellow police officers. In March, it looks like that's when the investigation began. And then in October, as per a UPI article entitled Officer on Paid Leave for 7 Years, it says that Officer Kevin Kilpatrick, 41 of the Davie Police Department, was originally placed on leave in October 2003 while being investigated on allegations he violated orders by refusing to stay away from members of the department's Special Investigation Unit. So back to this article, it says, according to court records, George placed Kilpatrick on leave in October 2003 over complaints about, quote, actions you have taken toward your fellow officers, end quote, and launched an internal investigation into whether he violated a direct order to stay away from members of the department's Special Investigation Unit. The case ended with a finding that he violated lawful orders. Okay, so the reason I'm pointing that out and making a point to point that out is I'm wondering here if he attacked the investigator that was investigating him and the other officers that had covered up the 911 call and possibly the DUI. I'm not sure if that one was covered up or not. But this is all very interesting and it points to something for me. Is this a person that is above the law? And being a partner, being the husband of a candidate running for such a high office, that's a really important question. Is this something where we are okay with covering up crimes and attacking people investigating? And like, is that the thing that is okay here? Is this acceptable to the candidate is really my question. Okay. Continuing on with the article. While still on paid leave, Kilpatrick became the subject of another internal investigation into an alleged DUI. A jury found him not guilty in September 2004, but after an internal affairs investigation into the incident, the chief fired Kilpatrick the following February for violating department policy. A year later, an arbitrator ruled Davie was wrong to terminate Kilpatrick and reduce his discipline to a 10-day suspension. The arbitrator awarded back pay and restored Kilpatrick's benefits and seniority. Still, the town wouldn't let him go back to work. As court records show, Kilpatrick had already been found fit for duty in 2 separate psychological exams, but officials insisted he had to pass another one, given by an expert picked by the city. Meanwhile, he remained on paid leave. This time, the psychologist found Kilpatrick, quote, permanently unfit for duty, end quote. Based on that, the department fired him again in January 2008. Kilpatrick filed a federal lawsuit in May 2008, arguing that Davie had violated his federal rights. The town settled in August 2009, agreeing to reinstate him and pay him $300,000 in back pay and attorney's fees. So that's, side note, that's taxpayer money, just so you know. Okay, back to it. But to this day, he remains on paid leave, not allowed to work. Davie is still negotiating the terms of his employment, the town attorney said. And remember, this article was written in 2011. Okay. Rayson said Police Chief Patrick Lynn has resisted putting Kilpatrick back to work because Lynn, quote, believes there are ambiguities in the settlement agreement and he wants clarification. But if we go back to court for clarification, it will cost the town more money. I say enough with going back and bothering the judge. There is no reason why we shouldn't be able to get him back to work, end quote. In the meantime, Kilpatrick has continued to collect yearly raises and benefits negotiated by the police union over the past 7 years. Again, taxpayer money. Kilpatrick has agreed to retire in 2014 when he is eligible to receive his full pension. Quote, he's more than happy to go back to work or take the retirement. His attorney said he doesn't care. Okay, so that's the end of that article. And then I've got one more short one on the, it's reason.com. And the title is How Hard Is It to Fire a Police Officer? And this is titled, this was dated February 16th, 2011. And here we go. It's a short one. According to the Orlando Sentinel, maybe he meant Orlando Sentinel, I don't know. Davie, Florida. Let me start over. According to the Orlando Sentinel, Davie, Florida police officer Kevin Kilpatrick, has been on paid leave for 7 years. During that time, he has received full pay and benefits plus annual raises. He has collected more than $500,000 for doing nothing. The department has twice tried to fire Kilpatrick because of an alleged DUI and an alleged attempt to cover up a domestic abuse incident. Both times the department was overturned, once by an arbitrator, once by a federal judge, for violating agreements in the union negotiated police contract. If Kilpatrick can hold on till 2014, he'll get to retire with a full pension. Okay, so that's enough of those news articles for a moment. I want to explain why this is concerning. And I also want to say, Kevin, I am so sorry that that you're having to experience all of this at this moment. And also, Patrice, I am sorry that you are having to be put through this at this moment. I do not find Patrice Kilpatrick to be a bad person in any way, shape, or form. I simply do not find her to be somebody that should be in the position of sole commissioner, in my opinion, after what I've observed, and my belief that all we really need is free speech and to let the people do what we've already been doing. No fighting and no trying to create a big drama thing to get attention on it and to cause division in the county. I'm not okay with that. And in someone putting themselves in the position of running for such a high office, this is what happens. The things that go against, the things that support the idea that you're not the best person for that seat are going to come up. And it pains me that I'm in this position of having to bring these things up, but it's because I am so incredibly passionate about free speech and about the citizens of this county. I have watched as Patrice Kilpatrick supporters, like I said, members of the GOP are banning free speech on forums that they are calling free speech forums during a primary. That is incredibly manipulative and incredibly dangerous. And it honestly disgusts me. This is what I have fought so hard against. And that is why we are where we are right now and why I am doing this news report. It is not out of maliciousness. I really, really am sorry that if this was a difficult thing to have lived through the first time, that it's having to be brought up again. But this is the nature of selecting and fine-tooth combing our candidates to make sure that we have the right person there. And therefore, this is what's happening. Okay, now I've got one more news article, not at all related to this one, but also related to this one, involving Scott Donahue, who I said before, you can find him sitting at tables with Patrice, at meetings. You can see him very vulgarly supporting her and attacking people that question her all over Facebook. But the interesting thing about him is he also worked for the Davie Police Department at the same time. So I don't know if they plan to travel here together or not, but they are together often. And I told you about how they also, including Scott Donahue, are all a close-knit group with that group of Green Berets. And remember, Scott Donahue is the one that, while posing as a functioning member of the Tea Party, was golfing with Stan Gunter to actively go against the citizens, right? Okay, so a citizen sent me in an article about Scott Donahue, and the reason it relates is I want to point out that this could very well be like an organized attempt for widespread power. I don't think it is. I think that it all just kind of fell in line that way. I think that personally, Scott Donahue and Patrice and her husband are a very tight-knit little friend group, and they joined up with the Green Beret guys that are a tight-knit group, and also the GOP members, and they're all just tight-knit now. However, I'm still going to read this. So Scott Donahue, this article is on cbsnews.com, and it is titled Davie Cop Charged with Battery. And this came out December 13th, 2012. Fort Lauderdale, CBS Miami. A Davie police officer was taken into custody after he allegedly hit and shoved two 17-year-old girls. Timothy Scott Donahue, 46, has been charged with 2 counts of child abuse and 2 counts of battery. It began just after 3:15 p.m. Wednesday when the girls arrived home and put their backpacks, papers, and Bibles on a counter near the kitchen. When the teens went to watch TV, Donahue knocked the items off the counter, according to his complaint affidavit. Donahue then reportedly told the girls to pick up their things. When one of the girls told Donahue he was going to hell for throwing a Bible on the floor, he replied, quote, "Shut up or I'm going to knock your teeth down your throat," end quote, according to the report. The girl then reportedly argued back that he couldn't touch her. When he replied, quote, "Yes, I can," end quote, she stood up as he approached her, according to the report. When he was standing in front of her, he allegedly hit her on the left cheek and eye with a loosely closed hand. Afraid that she might be hit again, the report said the girl tried to push him back, but he didn't budge. Donahue then reportedly shoved back, forcing the girl to the ground. The second 17-year-old girl then tried to intervene, but Donahue allegedly grabbed her by the throat and backed her into a stairwell before letting her go. Both teens were able to make it out of the house and call police. Okay, now on another article, also Sun Sentinel. And this one is titled Davie Officer Cleared in Child Abuse Gets Job Back. And this is dated November 12th, 2013. Okay, a veteran Davie police officer, and there's a reason I'm reading this, so just bear with me. A veteran Davie police officer recently returned to work 8 months after he was accused of striking his 2 teenage daughters during a fight. Timothy Scott Donahue, 47, resumed his position as a road patrol officer on August 29th after he was suspended without pay for 2 weeks and signed an agreement regarding future discipline. Davie Police Chief Patrick Lynn recommended firing Donahue as a result of his arrest in December on felony child abuse and misdemeanor battery charges. But the town pursued a lesser discipline that allows Donahue to keep his position as long as he doesn't violate another police department policy, such as neglecting his duties or not showing up for work within the next 3 years. Donahue first joined the Davie Police Department in 1998 and makes $237,000 annually. Let me see, how do I say that right? $84,237. There we go. Annually. Donahue was paid his regular salary while he was on leave during the investigation. The officer was arrested by his own police department after he allegedly struck one of his daughters in the face and pushed another daughter during a fight over a Bible that he apparently tossed on the floor. Donahue was on duty and was not supposed to be at home when the domestic dispute happened. The state attorney's office dismissed the charges in January because there were no significant injuries and the family didn't want to press charges. Okay, I'm just going to pause here. There is a difference between what happened and what is decided in court. Because laws and all of those things, and you can't prove something, just like in the situation with the DUI, when they started investigating it was months later and they couldn't go back. So it couldn't be, that was a mute issue. So the same here. I mean, who would have dropped the charges would be the parents, right? That's just what I'm guessing. Of course, I personally have been on the receiving end of a lot of intense aggression from Scott Donahue, so I'm I'm a little biased in my beliefs on what his actions probably were, but that's just me. Okay, so an internal affairs investigation released to the Sun Sentinel says Donahue violated 3 police department policies as a result of the incident, including integrity, compliance and knowledge, and duty conduct. In the report, one of Donahue's daughters said that he, quote, approached her and made his right hand into a loose fist. He swung wide and struck the daughter in the left cheekbone and eye, end quote. The girls also said that Donahue used his left hand to grab one daughter around the throat, end quote, pushing her backward against the staircase. The officer denied striking the girls or putting his hand on his daughter's throat, according to the report. A settlement was reached. The deal resulted in him retaining his position, said Paul Williams, president of the Davie Police Union. Donahue declined to comment when reached by phone on Thursday. And then another article, Sun Sentinel, dated June 2nd, 2014, titled Davie Fires Officer 17 months after arrest in domestic dispute. Now, this I'm just pointing out, we're not going to read the whole thing, but he did get fired because, as you remember in that agreement, he was on probation basically for 3 years. He couldn't violate any policies. And then he went and did. It says an officer arrested in 2012 after his twin teenage daughters accused him of hitting them during a family argument has been fired. I'm going to jump ahead because we've already... it says Donahue, 48, failed to write an incident report after a 13-year-old claimed she had been battered by other girls. Donahue says the girl's mother asked him not to write the report, but the error cost him his job. The town says Donahue violated a last chance agreement negotiated after his arrest on December 12, 2012. The agreement says he cannot appeal his termination if he violates the contract by neglecting his duties or breaking department policy over the next 3 years. Police Chief Patrick Lynn rejected Donahue's request for arbitration, Puelo said. Donahue, who claims he has not violated the agreement, is appealing his case to the town administrator, Puelo said. Okay, so I'm not reading the whole article because we've already read so much about all this, but basically what I'm pointing out is, for some reason, both of these officers, the Davie Police Department, worked really hard to get them out for some reason. And they kept not succeeding in that, but I'm questioning why. And I'm understanding now a lot of the things I'm seeing from Scott Donahue online is attacking the police department here, and that they won't talk with him. I guess Dyer's campaign won't go associate with this group. And I can see, I mean, it looks like these are disgraced officers is what it looks like. And it's unfortunate, but okay, so we're going to leave that there. So now I'm going to explain why I find all of this very interesting and concerning for our citizens. This is more of an in conclusion thing. So the question of using lawyers to take well over $500,000 in taxpayer money for doing nothing. In exchange, okay? Using arbitration and lawyers to continue taking this money, not to mention the pension that has been paid out over the last 10 years. That's a valid concern. That's a valid question. The issue of GOP members supporting Patrice Kilpatrick's campaign during a primary while banning free speech, that's a very valid concern. Patrice Kilpatrick's refusal to answer questions is a valid concern. Her proximity to 2 different police officers removed from duty for choking or grabbing females by the throat is a valid concern. Her marriage to a police officer whose fellow officers helped cover up his crimes is a valid concern, as is the question of whether or not she agrees with internal corruption to cover crimes, and the question of him being barred from work for physically attacking or somehow attacking the investigators investigating him. Along with that, fleeing a DUI, like in pursuit, a car chase, that he actually outran the police of his own department. All of this brings concern over whether or not Patrice Kilpatrick is aligned with the idea of anyone being above the law. And then the concern, if elected, is that she and her staunch supporters banning free speech will then have a hold on the GOP, our free speech online forums, so-called, and the sole commissioner seat. Not to mention that those same supporters are working so hard to get to be able to ban people from speaking about the sheriff's seat. They have eyes on that also. So this one group of people that have a lot of questions about them, about what their actual interest is in having power over Union County politics and government, that's a real concern. And biggest concern for me is all of this free speech. Not only has Patrice Kilpatrick not reached out to me to answer any of these questions, but she has also not once stood in opposition to her supporters banning free speech on Facebook of the multitude of citizens that are getting widespread banned from these platforms for discussing candidates during a primary. I am really upset. I am not kidding. This is manipulation of a population of people in an effort to gain power. And that is why I'm here. And that is why I am not supporting Patrice Kilpatrick for sole commissioner. And again, I am sorry, Patrice. Running for a position like that means that things like this are going to come up. And it really makes me sad that I have to be the one to deliver it. But you know, after watching me in action for 3 years, that I am not ever going to sit still while I'm watching free speech of citizens get railroaded during an election. So, okay, I am done with this report. I hope that it was informative. And I hope that without all of this stuff about the questions for the candidate Patrice, I hope that anyone listening to this will go back and remember the story of the disorganized grassroots movement for freedom in Union County, because these are our neighbors. These are our neighbors that did not have anyone leading them to do this. All that they required was passion, showing up for meetings, and having anywhere to have free speech so that they could tell the citizens what was going on. And we've accomplished that without anyone having to put their name on it, have their face in the pictures, none of it. We accomplished that as a community of just random citizens, and it is amazing, and I love it so much. And that is the power of free speech, and that is why that is so important. All right, I'm done. I am going to walk away now, but I hope that that was an informative Citizen News report, and I look forward to joining you on the next one. If you liked this report and want to see more in the future, please consider liking the YouTube channel and even the Facebook page, and sharing this video with your friends and neighbors, and just letting anyone in the community know that this channel does exist. And also, if you have anything that you would like for me to know about or to possibly cover in the future, please go ahead and send that to me. Go ahead and send it through the Facebook page if you can, through Facebook, and I will definitely get it, and I will be very appreciative. Also, I want to say thank you to all of the support that I've been getting in my private messages there this week. That has been really inspiring to see that so many people are paying attention and hungry for information. All right, well, I will see you next time here on Voices of Union County, Georgia.